The rain hammered the window panes like a confession too long buried. Each drop a reminder that some storms don't wait for permission to flood in. Riley's key turned in the lock at midnight. Her silhouette drenched and defeated against the hallway light. Suitcase thumping to the floor like a final surrender. "Harper," she whispered, voice cracking on the edge of a sob. "I couldn't stay there another second, it's over. All of it." Harper Ellis had always known the weight of Riley Kane's silences, those pauses heavier than the fog rolling off the Willamette each morning. They were best friends since their junior year at Reed College. Two women carving out lives in Portland's labyrinth of coffee shops and hidden bookstores, where the scent of wet evergreens clung to everything like a half-remembered dream. Harper, with her steady job restoring antique books at Powell's City of Books, had built a quiet existence in her craftsman bungalow on the east side, exposed brick walls lined with shelves of dog-eared novels, a kitchen island scarred from late-night baking sessions, and that worn leather couch facing a bay window that framed the river's moody gleam. It was a sanctuary, or so she'd told herself for years, even as the emptiness echoed louder after her own quiet unraveling 5 years back, when her engagement to a man named Theo dissolved like mist under sun. No drama, just a slow fade, leaving her with questions about love's shape that she tucked away like unread letters. Riley's arrival shattered that fragile peace. She'd been with Lena for 7 years. A whirlwind romance born in the neon haze of a Seattle gallery opening. Lena, the sharp-edged curator with a laugh like shattered glass and ambitions that pulled her across continents. Their life together had been a montage of rooftop parties in Capitol Hill, whispered promises under aurora-lit skies during trips to Alaska, and the kind of passion that burned hot enough to scar. But lately, the calls had grown sparse, the texts laced with excuses, until 2 weeks ago, when Lena confessed over a sterile Zoom from Berlin, she was seeing someone else, a painter with hands that understood her in ways I can't explain. Riley had held it together then, packing boxes with mechanical precision. But tonight, driving the 3 hours south in the downpour, the dam broke. Harper pulled her into a hug without a word. Riley's wet coat soaking through her own shirt, the scent of her vanilla shampoo mingling with the metallic tang of rain. "Stay as long as you need," Harper murmured, guiding her to the couch where a quilt waited, folded like an old friend. Riley collapsed onto it, knees drawn up, mascara streaking her cheeks in black rivulets that mirrored the storm outside. She was 31. With sun-kissed blonde waves now limp and tangled. Her green eyes, usually sparkling with that irreverent wit that lit up rooms, dull as tarnished jade. Freckles dusted her nose like forgotten constellations, and her frame, once athletic from weekend hikes in the gorge, now seemed fragile, as if the breakup had leached the color from her skin. They talked until the rain softened to a patter, Riley's words tumbling out in fits and starts, the lies uncovered in a forgotten email. The way Lena's touch had turned cold months before the end. The hollow ache of replaying their last fight in an empty apartment that still smelled of her perfume. Harper listened, handing over tissues and refills of herbal tea, her own heart twisting in empathy. She'd been there. In her way, not the betrayal, but the slow erosion of self under someone else's expectations. With Theo, it had been the pressure to fit a mold she never quite could. The unspoken assumption that her attractions were a phase to outgrow. Coming out to friends after the split had been a quiet revolution. But the loneliness lingered, a shadow in her chest. As the clock ticked past 2, Riley's voice trailed off, exhaustion claiming her mid-sentence. Harper draped the quilt over her, watching the rise and fall of her breathing, the way her lashes fluttered against flushed cheeks. In the lamplight, Riley looked younger, vulnerable in a way that stirred something deep in Harper, a fierce protectiveness laced with an ache she dared not name. She retreated to her bedroom upstairs, the creak of the stairs a soft echo in the night, but sleep evaded her. Lying in the dark, she traced patterns on the ceiling, memories flickering like old film reels, college nights sharing cheap wine on Harper's dorm floor, dissecting crushes and dreams, the time Riley nursed her through a flu with soup and bad rom-coms, that rainy hike last summer where Riley's hand brushed hers on a slick trail, a spark ignored in the downpour. Morning came gray and reluctant, the city awakening to the drip of gutters and the distant hum of the Max line. Harper brewed coffee strong as regret, the aroma weaving through the house like a tentative olive branch. Downstairs, Riley stirred, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling before the events of the night crashed back. God. Harper. I'm sorry, she groaned, sitting up with a wince, quilt pooling around her waist. Her voice was raw, threaded with the gravel of unshed tears. I didn't mean to dump all that on you. I drove straight here. It's the only place that felt like home. Harper set a mug on the coffee table, steam curling like ghosts. This is home, Riley. For both of us. Whenever you need it. She sat on the arm of the couch, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her friend, but careful not to crowd. They sipped in companionable quiet at first, the rain resuming its rhythm against the panes, turning the world outside to a watercolor blur. Portland in November was a city of suspended animation, leaves carpeting the sidewalks in crimson and gold, baristas sketching latte art in corner cafes, the river swelling with secrets from upstream. Riley picked at the hem of her sweater, a soft knit in faded blue that Harper recognized from a flea market find 2 summers ago. Lena always said I was too needy, she confessed, staring into her cup as if it held answers. That I clung too tight, like I'd suffocate her. Maybe she's right. I keep thinking about all the ways I failed her, the trips I canceled for work, the fights over her late nights. But then I remember how she looked at me that last time, like I was a stranger. How do you grieve someone who's still alive, breathing the same air but worlds away? Harper's throat tightened, words forming slow and deliberate. You don't fail by loving hard. That's not a flaw, it's your light. And grief. It's not linear. It's this river we live by, twists and undertows. But it keeps moving, carving new paths. She reached out, hesitating before resting her hand on Riley's knee, the contact grounding them both. Riley's gaze lifted, meeting hers with a flicker of gratitude that bloomed into something warmer, unspoken. The day unfolded in gentle increments. Harper called in sick to the bookstore, claiming a migraine, easy enough in a city where wellness days were as common as craft brews. They ventured out only for groceries, umbrellas bobbing like dark lanterns along Alberta Street, where indie shops spilled autumn displays onto the pavement, pumpkins carved with intricate faces, stacks of vinyl records whispering promises of escape. At the market, Riley selected heirloom apples, their skins mottled red and gold, and a wedge of sharp cheddar, comforts from her childhood in rural Montana, where fall meant harvest festivals and bonfires under star-pricked skies. Back home, they cooked together, a ritual as old as their friendship. Harper chopped onions with practiced ease, the sizzle in the pan releasing savory steam that fogged the windows. Riley grated cheese, her movements gaining steadiness, a tentative smile breaking through as she recounted a disastrous attempt at risotto during her early days with Lena. She laughed at me for hours, called it weaponized mush. But it was fun. You know? Messy and real. Her laugh was brittle at first, then genuine, echoing off the tiled backsplash. As dusk fell, painting the kitchen in hues of bruised plum, they ate at the small oak table by the window, forks clinking softly. The conversation meandered, from Riley's stalled graphic design gigs to Harper's latest restoration project, a first-edition Virginia Woolf dogged by water stains like tear tracks. But beneath the surface, currents stirred. Riley's foot brushed Harper's under the table, accidental at first, then lingering, a silent acknowledgement. Harper felt it like a pulse, warm and insistent, stirring embers she'd long banked. That night, as thunder rumbled distant over the Cascades, Riley curled on the couch again, but sleep came fitful. Harper heard her tossing from upstairs, the quilt rustling like dry leaves. Unable to ignore it, she descended in socks and an oversized tee, the stairs groaning under her weight. "Can't sleep," she whispered, perching on the coffee table. Riley shook her head, eyes shiny in the low light. "Nightmares." Her face, twisting into something ugly. "I wake up gasping, like I'm drowning." She sat up, hugging her knees, the vulnerability stripping her bare. Harper slid onto the couch beside her, the cushions dipping under their combined weight. "Here," she said softly, opening her arms. Riley leaned in without hesitation, head on Harper's shoulder, the curve of her body fitting against Harper's like a missing piece. They stayed like that, breath sinking to the rain's cadence, Harper's hand tracing idle circles on Riley's back. In that moment, the air thickened with possibility, not urgent, but profound, like the first crack of dawn through storm clouds. Words gave way to quiet confessions. Riley spoke of the loneliness even in Lena's arms, the way she dimmed her own fire to match a flickering flame. "I thought love was supposed to eclipse everything else, make you whole. But it just hollowed me out." Her voice trembled, hot tears soaking Harper's collar. Harper held her closer, her own heart aching with echoes of her past. "Love isn't eclipse. It's amplification, two lights weaving, not one swallowing the other." She tilted Riley's chin up gently, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling in the charged space. Riley's eyes searched hers, wide with a mix of fear and yearning, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that gaze, green flecked with gold like sun-dappled forest floors. Then Riley pulled back, exhaling shakily. "Thank you," she murmured, nestling against Harper's side once more. "For being my anchor." They dozed there together, the couch cradling them through the night's remnants, dawn creeping in with hesitant fingers of pink. Harper woke first, Riley's weight a warm anchor against her, blonde strands fanned across her chest. For the first time in years, the emptiness felt filled, not with noise, but with a quiet certainty. Safe love, she realized, wasn't the grand gesture or the fevered rush. It was this, the steady harbor after the gale. But as the city stirred beyond the glass, Harper wondered if Riley felt it too, the shift. Subtle as tides turn. From solace to something deeper. The day ahead promised more unraveling. More rain-slick streets and half-brewed truths. But for now, in the hush of morning, it was enough. The second week blurred into a rhythm of shared silences and small salvations. Portland's perpetual drizzle mirroring the slow thaw in Riley's guarded heart. Harper's bungalow became a cocoon, its walls absorbing the echoes of late-night talks that stretched until the river lights winked out one by one. Morning started with the gurgle of the French press, sunlight filtering through lace curtains to gild the steam rising from mugs etched with inside jokes. Brewed awakening for Harper. Espresso yourself for Riley. They'd linger at the kitchen island, Riley sketching idle designs on napkins while Harper pored over repair manuals for warped book spines, their laughter punctuating the quiet like birdsong after rain. Yet beneath the ease, fractures lingered. Riley's phone buzzed sporadically with notifications from mutual friends, each one a barb. Heard about Lena, saw her post from Berlin. You okay? She'd silence it with a flick. But the tension coiled in her shoulders, visible in the way she paced the living room, bare feet whispering over the Persian rug. One afternoon, as they wandered the Saturday market under a tentative blue sky, the air thick with the tang of smoked salmon and fresh sourdough, spilled over. A vendor's stall brimmed with handmade journals, leather-bound and embossed with wildflowers, remnants of the ones Riley used to gift Lena on anniversaries. Look at these, Riley said, voice tight as she traced a petal-etched cover. She'd hate them now. Said my sentimentality was cloying, like I was some Victorian novel come to life. Her fingers trembled, the journal slipping from her grasp to thump against the wooden crate. Harper caught it mid-fall, handing it back with a steady gaze. Or maybe she just didn't know how to hold something real without breaking it. They bought two anyway, one for each, and walked home along the esplanade, the Willamette lapping at concrete barriers like a restless confession. Gulls wheeled overhead, their cries sharp against the hum of cyclists and distant ferry horns. That evening, as twilight bled indigo across the sky, Riley unpacked her suitcase in the spare room upstairs, a space Harper had dubbed the ghost attic, for its dust-ruffled corners and forgotten trunks from her grandmother's era. It overlooked a sliver of the river, where barges glided like somber swans. Harper helped hang Riley's clothes in the closet, the scent of cedar mingling with lavender detergent, a domesticity that felt both comforting and charged. A framed photo tumbled from the bag, Riley and Lena at a vineyard in Walla Walla, arms entwined, cheeks flushed from wine and summer heat. Riley snatched it up, knuckles whitening. I should burn this, her voice cracked, eyes glistening as she hurled it into the corner, glass shattering like brittle ice. Shards scattered across the hardwood, catching the lamplight in fractured prisms. Harper knelt without thinking, gathering pieces with careful hands, a thin line of blood welling where a edge nicked her palm. Hey, she said softly, rising to meet Riley's wild gaze. You don't have to destroy the memory to let it go. It's part of you. Scars and all. Riley sank onto the bed, face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The room filled with the raw sound of unraveling, grief pouring out like wine from an overturned glass. Harper wrapped her arms around her, rocking gently, murmuring nonsense about Montana sunsets and Portland's hidden speakeasies, anything to anchor her friend through the torrent. When the sobs ebbed to hiccups, Riley lifted her head, eyes red-rimmed but clear. Why do I still miss her? After everything, the lies, the way she made me feel small. It's like I'm addicted to the hurt. Harper bandaged her own cut with a strip of gauze from the bathroom kit, the sting a minor echo of Riley's deeper wound. Because love imprints. It etches lines on your soul. Some beautiful, some jagged. Missing her doesn't mean you want her back. It means you're human. Feeling the space she left. She sat beside her on the quilted bedspread, their thighs brushing, the air humming with unspoken layers. Riley leaned into her, head on Harper's shoulder, the photo's wreckage glinting in the periphery like a cautionary tale. You're too good at this, she whispered, fingers intertwining with Harper's uninjured hand. Seeing the light in the mess. How do you do it? After Theo, you never talk about it. But I know it gutted you. Harper's breath caught. The question a key turning in a long locked door. Theo had been her college sweetheart. A philosophy major with wire-rimmed glasses and debates that stretched into dawn. They'd planned a life in the suburbs. White picket fences and 2.5 kids. Until one night over takeout pad thai. He'd admitted his wandering eye toward their barista, a woman with tattoos snaking up her arms. It wasn't the infidelity that broke her. It was the realization that she'd been performing a version of herself, straight-laced and unquestioning, while her true desire simmered beneath, drawn to the soft curves and knowing smiles of women in passing glances. Coming out had been a solitary bloom, shared first with Riley over midnight ice cream. Her friends embraced the first safe harbor. I rebuilt in pieces, Harper admitted, voice low as the river's murmur below. Books helped, restoring them is like mending stories, page by page. And you? You've been my constant. Even when I didn't say it, the words hung between them, heavy with implication. Riley's thumb tracing the back of Harper's hand in slow, soothing arcs. They ordered pizza that night. Grease-spotted boxes spread on the coffee table like a feast for the brokenhearted. The film they chose was Carol. Its black and white elegance unfolding on the flat screen. Therese and Carol's tentative glances mirroring their own sidelong looks. Riley commented on the cinematography. The way shadows played over faces like unspoken secrets. But her attention drifted, head eventually pillowing on Harper's lap. Harper's fingers combed through her hair, strands silken as cornsilk, each stroke a quiet vow. As credits rolled to swelling strings, Riley stirred, green eyes locking onto Harper's with an intensity that stole the breath from the room. What if I never feel safe again? She breathed. Vulnerability raw as exposed nerve. Harper cupped her cheek, thumb brushing a stray tear track. You will. Starting here. With us. The kiss that followed was inevitable. Soft as falling leaves, Riley's lips tentative against hers. Tasting of salt and pepperoni. A question answered in the press. Deepened slowly. Hands mapping familiar terrain with newfound wonder. But Harper pulled back first. Heart pounding like rain on tin. We take it slow, she said. Foreheads touching. No rushing the healing. Riley nodded. A small smile breaking through like sun after squall. They parted for bed. Riley to the spare room. Harper to her own, but the house felt smaller. Walls humming with possibility. In the dark, Harper lay awake. The taste of Riley lingering. A promise of light piercing the long night of her own unspoken longings. Days turned to a tentative exploration. Walks along the waterfront where cherry blossoms clung stubbornly to branches, their petals drifting like confetti on the breeze. Riley started freelancing again. Her laptop opened to digital illustrations of misty forests and hidden coves, inspired by Oregon's wild heart. Harper watched her bloom. The way her focus sharpened, laughter returning in full measure during impromptu dance parties to Fleetwood Mac in the kitchen. But shadows persisted. A package arrived midweek, Lena's things, forwarded without note, a silk scarf, a half-read novel, a playlist scrawled on a napkin. Riley froze in the doorway, box clutched like a grenade. "I can't," she choked, shoving it into Harper's arms before fleeing to the porch, where the river's expanse offered no solace. Harper followed, setting the box aside to wrap Riley in her coat against the chill wind whipping off the water. They sat on the swing, creaking gently, Portland's skyline a jagged silhouette against the setting sun. "You don't have to open it alone," Harper said, voice steady as oak. "But when you're ready, remember these are relics, not chains." Riley's head fell to Harper's shoulder, a sigh escaping like steam from a kettle. "I keep waiting for the anger to fade, but it's this undercurrent, pulling me under. What if I'm not worth loving, right?" The question pierced Harper like a thorn, drawing her own buried doubts to the surface. "You are," she insisted, turning Riley's face to hers. "Worthy of the kind of love that builds, not breaks. The kind I've always seen in you." Their kiss this time was fiercer, born of defiance against the dusk, hands clutching as if to ward off the encroaching cold. That night, the couch became their confessional again, bodies entwined under the quilt, whispers weaving through the dark. Riley traced Harper's collarbone, marveling at the freckles like stars in a private galaxy. "I've been blind," she admitted, voice husky with revelation. To us." Harper's heart swelled, a tide rising. "We've both been healing in the dark. Now, we step into the light together." Winter crept in on frost-kissed heels, blanketing Portland in a hush of hoarfrost and early dusks, the city lights blooming like fireflies against the encroaching night. Riley's presence in the bungalow had woven itself into the warp and weft of Harper's days, a seamless thread that turned solitary routines into shared symphonies. Mornings now included Riley's hummed folk tunes over scrambled eggs, her voice a warm counterpoint to the espresso machine's hiss. Afternoons found them bundled against the bite, strolling through Washington Park where rhododendrons slumbered under rime, their breaths clouding the air like shared secrets. The shift between them was a delicate unfurling, like ferns after thaw, touches lingering longer, glances holding promises. One crisp Saturday, they drove out to the Columbia River Gorge, the winding highway flanked by basalt cliffs veined with waterfalls that plunged like silver ribbons. Riley navigated from the passenger seat, map app glowing on her phone, her excitement bubbling as they parked near Multnomah Falls. Mist rose from the base, veiling the world in ethereal gauze, the roar a constant underscore to their words. "Remember that trip we took freshman year?" Riley asked, linking arms with Harper as they climbed the stone steps, boots crunching on gravel. "To the coast. In your beat-up Civic? We got lost. Ended up at that diner with the world's worst pie." Harper laughed, the sound echoing off the wet rock faces. "And you ate it anyway. Declared it an acquired taste. We've been acquiring tastes ever since." At the bridge spanning the falls, they leaned on the railing, Water's thunder vibrating through the iron. Riley's hair whipping in the spray-laced wind. She turned to Harper, eyes bright as the gorge's hidden emeralds. This feels like that new territory. But with you, it's home. Their hands found each other naturally, fingers lacing as they descended. The contact a quiet declaration amid the natural symphony. Back in the car, heaters blasting against chilled skin, Riley leaned across the console, pressing a kiss to Harper's temple. Thank you for this. For seeing me through the fog. Harper's pulse quickened. The road ahead curving like the path their story was taking, unpredictable, but leading somewhere luminous. Dinner that night was at a hole-in-the-wall in Hood River, windsurfers' haven, where they split a platter of Dungeness crab, shells cracking under forks like breaking barriers. Over candle flicker and the murmur of locals swapping tales, Riley opened up about the early days with Lena, the electric pull of their first date, dancing in a cramped apartment to Nina Simone, the dreams they'd spun of a life untethered, galleries in Paris, studios overlooking the Sound. But it was always her vision, Riley reflected, dipping bread into garlic butter, her expression a mosaic of fondness and fracture. I bent to fit, until I didn't recognize the shape anymore. She reached for Harper's hand across the scarred oak table, thumb circling a knuckle. With you, it's different. Like breathing after holding it too long. The drive home was wrapped in companionable quiet, stars pricking the velvet sky as they crossed the bridge back into Portland. At the bungalow, the fire crackled in the hearth, logs popping like punctuation to their evening. They curled on the rug before it, wine glasses balanced on knees, the warmth seeping into bones weary from the day's chill. Riley traced patterns on Harper's arm, idle swirls that evolved into deliberate paths, mapping the subtle curve of elbow to wrist. I've been thinking, Riley said, voice soft as ash settling, about what safe feels like. Not just the absence of storm, but the presence of this. She gestured between them, the firelight dancing in her eyes. Harper set her glass aside, shifting to face her fully, the rugs weave imprinting diamonds on her skin. It's the kind of love that lets you unfold, Harper replied, her hand cupping Riley's jaw, thumb grazing the soft underside. Their lips met in the fire's glow, a kiss that started tender and built to a slow burn, exploring, affirming, without the urgency of desperation. Riley's fingers threaded into Harper's hair, tugging gently, eliciting a sigh that mingled with the flu's whisper. They parted breathless, foreheads pressed, the world reduced to the space between heartbeats. Stay, Harper murmured. Not just for the night, but for the arc of whatever came next. Riley nodded, a vow sealed in the flicker of flames. The following days deepened their intimacy, layers peeling like birch bark in spring. Riley joined Harper at the bookstore one gray Tuesday, her presence a bright spot amid the stacks. While Harper worked in the rare books room, gloved hands coaxing life back into yellowed pages, Riley browsed the poetry section, emerging with a volume of Mary Oliver that she read aloud in the break room, lines about wild geese urging us toward gladness, her voice wrapping around Harper like sunlight through leaves. That evening, they attended a queer open mic at a dive in the Pearl District, the air thick with cigarette haze and the twang of acoustic guitars. Riley signed up on a whim, reciting a piece she'd scribbled that afternoon, verses of shattered mirrors and mended wings, her delivery raw and resonant, drawing snaps from the crowd. Harper watched from a corner booth, pride swelling like tide. The way Riley commanded the stage a reminder of the fire Lena had nearly extinguished. Afterward, over late-night pho at a neon-lit spot on Burnside, Riley's high lingered, cheeks flushed from adrenaline and spice. "I forgot what it feels like to create without fear," she said, slurping noodles with unself-conscious gusto. "You make me brave." Harper's foot hooked around hers under the table, a subtle anchor. "You were always brave." I just held the mirror, but not all moments were gilded. The third week brought a call from Lena, voicemail left at dawn. Voice polished but edged with regret. "I miss our talks. Coffee when I'm back? No pressure." Riley played it on speaker in the kitchen, face paling as steam rose from the toaster like a veil. She deleted it without reply, but the echo lingered, a ghost in the wiring. "I hate that she can still rattle me," Riley admitted later, as they washed dishes side by side, suds bubbling like unspoken fears. Water cascaded from the tap, warm and forgiving, mirroring the river's eternal flow. Harper dried a plate, stacking it with care. "It's the echo, not the source. Give it time, it'll fade to white noise." She bumped Riley's hip playfully, eliciting a watery smile, then pulled her into a soapy embrace, laughter bubbling up to chase the shadow. Nights evolved into rituals of closeness, shared baths drawn with eucalyptus salts, the steam curling like dreams deferred, mornings tangled in sheets, Riley's head on Harper's chest, listening to the steady drum beneath. Their lovemaking was a language of rediscovery, gentle caresses that spoke of trust rebuilt, kisses like footnotes to old wounds. No rush, no possession, just the profound grace of bodies remembering safety. One midnight, as snow flurried unexpected against the panes, Portland's rare winter gift, Riley woke Harper with a whisper. "Dance with me," barefoot in the living room. They swayed to a phantom melody, Riley's cheek against Harper's, the flakes outside a silent applause. "This is what I want," Riley breathed. "Us." In the quiet spaces, Harper spun her gently, catching her close. "Then we claim them. All of them." As the season deepened, their bond solidified, a bridge spanning the gorge of past pains. Friends noticed the subtle glow in Riley's sketches, the lightness in Harper's step at group hikes. Invitations trickled in. A Yule gathering at a friend's vineyard outside the city, where mulled wine warmed palms and fairy lights strung through bare oaks evoked forgotten magic. There, amid laughter and carols, Riley pulled Harper aside to a frost-laced arbor, breath clouding between them. "I love you," she said simply, the words a lantern lit against the cold. Harper's response was a kiss under the stars, fierce and sure, sealing the meeting of souls long orbiting in wait. Spring tiptoed into Portland with hesitant blossoms, dogwoods unfurling pink petals along the streets like whispered apologies for winter's austerity. The bungalow thrummed with renewal, windows flung open to breezes carrying lilac and damp earth, Riley's illustrations pinned to walls like vibrant tapestries of their evolving world. Their love had settled into a rhythm as natural as the river's bend, mornings marked by lazy kisses over coffee, evenings by walks where hands swung linked, fingers tracing tattooed stories on skin. Yet understanding demanded confrontation, the past's tendrils insistent as ivy reclaiming brick. Lena's return to the States loomed like a squall on the horizon. Whispers from shared circles placed her back in Seattle, curating a show at the Fry Art Museum. Riley feigned indifference, but Harper saw the flicker, the way her sketches grew thornier, lines jagged as unsaid barbs. The nights she woke with a start, murmuring apologies to empty air. "We should talk about it," Harper ventured one sun-dappled afternoon, as they picnicked in Laurelhurst Park. Blankets spread under ancient cedars where squirrels chattered judgments from branches. Cheese and figs from the market lay half-eaten. A bottle of rose sweating condensation onto grass still greening. Riley plucked a daisy, twirling it between fingers, petals a pale echo of her unease. "Talk about what?" "Her. Done. Harp. Ancient history." But her voice wavered, the stem snapping under pressure. Harper shifted closer, knees brushing in the shade's cool embrace. "Not if it's haunting you. Forgiveness isn't erasure. It's freeing yourself from the cage she built." She took Riley's hand, pressing the broken flower into her palm. "You've given me so much. Let me help carry this." Tears welled, unbidden, tracing paths down Riley's cheeks like rain on window glass. "I keep replaying it, the way she'd criticize my work. Say it lacked edge. Made me doubt every stroke. And the cheating. It wasn't just betrayal. It was confirmation that I wasn't enough." Her voice broke, shoulders curling inward as if to shield a fracturing core. Harper drew her into the circle of her arms. The park's symphony, children's laughter distant, leaves rustling like old letters, a gentle backdrop. "You are more than enough." Her words were her shadows, not your truth. But to heal, we faced them together. They sat like that until the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that danced with their own. The decision crystallized over the next days. Riley would write a letter, not to send, but to release, ink on paper as catharsis. Words bled onto pages like sap from a tapped maple. Harper cleared the dining table, lighting candles that flickered like watchful eyes, and brewed nettle tea strong as resolve. Riley hunched over notebook, pen scratching furious then faltering, hours melting into twilight. Snippets surfaced in fits. "You taught me passion's bite, but not its bomb. I forgive the girl who couldn't stay, because holding grudge chains us both." Harper read over her shoulder when invited, offering nods or a squeeze of shoulder, her presence a silent bulwark. When Riley finished, Dawn painting the room in rose, she folded the pages into an envelope, sealing it with wax dripped from a crimson taper. "Now what?" Riley asked, voice raw but lighter, envelope clutched like a talisman. Harper led her to the backyard, where the river's gleam peeked through neighbors' fences. They dug a shallow pit in the soft soil, bordered by emerging tulips, reds and yellows like hopeful flames. Riley struck a match, flame-kissing paper, the edges curling black as secrets yielded to ash. Smoke spiraled upward, carrying whispers to the indifferent sky, the scent acrid yet purifying. As embers cooled, Riley turned to Harper, eyes clear as spring-fed streams. "It's gone. Not forgotten, but weightless." Their embrace was fierce, bodies aligning in the garden's hush, lips meeting in a kiss tasting of smoke and rebirth. "I understand now," Riley murmured against her neck. "Why you rebuilt so quietly layer by layer, without fanfare." Harper pulled back, hands framing Riley's face, thumbs wiping residual damp. "And you? What's your forgiveness look like?" Riley's smile bloomed slow, radiant. Starting with myself. Then, extending it, like ripples from this fire. They scattered the ashes into the turned earth, fingers sifting gray to nourish roots. A ritual of return. The act loosened knots long tied. Riley's work surged. Commissions flowing for murals in local cafes, vines twisting into hearts, birds mid-flight from gilded cages. Harper marveled at her evolution, the way vulnerability fueled creation rather than stifling it. They hosted a small gathering that weekend. Friends from college days, artists from Riley's network, laughter filling the bungalow like sunlight through cracks. Amid the chatter, over platters of grilled asparagus and herb-crusted salmon from the river market, Riley pulled Harper into the pantry for a stolen moment, shelves of jars pressing at their backs, the scent of dried basil heady. "This life," she whispered, hands roaming Harper's waist. "It's ours." No echoes. Harper's response was a deepened kiss, urgent with affirmation. Bodies pressing in the confined space until a knock from outside drew chuckles and blushes. Emerging flushed, they rejoined the fray, hands brushing under the table, a private Morse code of contentment. But forgiveness extended outward too. A week later, an email arrived. "Lena, tentative olive branch extended. Saw your name on a gallery newsletter, proud of you. If you're open, I'd like to talk. Clear the air." Riley stared at the screen in Harper's lap as they lounged on the couch, spring rain pattering a soft underscore. "Part of me wants to delete it," Riley confessed, cursor hovering. "But the other?" "Closure. Maybe." Harper nodded, arm around her shoulders. "Only if it serves you." "I'll go with, if you want moral support in the wings." Riley hit reply. Words measured. Coffee sounds fine. Neutral ground. Saturday, the meet was set at a cafe in Vancouver, midway between cities, a no-man's land of espresso and anonymity. The drive north was laced with nerves. Riley's playlist of indie folk Oak, the head and the heart, filling the car with anthems of perseverance. Harper held her hand over the gearshift, thumb stroking knuckles white-knuckled on the wheel. "You're not going to war," she reminded gently. "Just a conversation." The cafe was a sunlit haven. Exposed beams and chalkboard menus scrawling specials in looping script. Lena waited at a corner table, her dark hair cropped shorter, frame slimmer in a tailored blazer, polished as ever, but eyes shadowed with their own weathering. Riley approached with chin lifted, Harper settling at a distant table with a book, visible sentinel. Their talk unfolded in waves, apologies exchanged like fragile china. Lena owning her cruelties. "I was lost in my own ambition." Lashed out at what was steady, Riley voicing hurts long bottled. "You made me question my worth," she said steadily, voice carrying just enough for Harper to catch the timbre of release. No recriminations, just truths aired like laundry on a line, drying under the cafe's warm lights. An hour later, Riley emerged, exhaling like surfacing from depths. Lena had left first, a hug awkward but genuine. In the parking lot, Riley collapsed against Harper, tears of catharsis streaking her face. "It's over." "Really?" I heard her, but I felt free. They drove home with windows down, wind tousling hair, stopping at a roadside stand for peonies bursting pink. That night, petals scattered on the bed like confetti. They loved with a new tenderness, bodies attuned to forgiveness's grace. Touches lingering as if to etch safety into skin. "I choose this," Riley whispered in the afterglow. Head on Harper's breast. Heartbeat a lullaby. "You." "Us." Harper kissed her crown, fingers weaving through damp strands. "And I choose understanding every shadowed corner. Every light we find, spring deepen their bond of verdant growth." They planted the garden together, herbs in terracotta pots, sunflowers stretching toward sun, mirroring the understanding taking root. Friends toasted their quiet union at a backyard fire pit. Stories swapped under lantern glow. The river's song a eternal witness. In those moments, Harper glimpsed the arc from fracture to fusion. Forgiveness the mortar binding shards into mosaic. Riley, once adrift, now anchored, her laughter a beacon. And in her eyes, Harper saw her own reflection, whole, cherished. The safe love they both craved blooming eternal. Summer arrived in Portland like a long-awaited lover. Sun gilding the Willamette in molten hues. The air humming with cicadas and the sizzle of street carts hawking Marionberry tarts. The bungalow pulsed with life, windows thrown wide to catch the breeze. Riley's murals adorning fences like declarations of rebirth. Their love had transcended the tentative, evolving into a living tapestry. Mornings tangled in sun-warmed sheets. Coffee shared on the porch swing where wisteria draped like lavender veils. Evenings kayaking the river. Paddles dipping in unison. Laughter echoing off water like skipping stones. Rebirth wasn't linear. But in Riley's case, it manifested in bold strokes. Her first solo exhibit opened at a gallery in the Alberta Arts District, a collection titled Ripples and Roots. Canvases alive with fluid lines. Women emerging from storm clouds. Hands outstretched to dawn. Forests where shadows birthed fireflies. Harper curated the invite list. A blend of their worlds, bookish introverts, vibrant creatives, turning the space into a haven of murmured awe and clinking glasses. The night buzzed electric. Riley in a sundress of emerald silk that hugged her curves like a second skin. Freckles aglow under string lights. Harper watched from the edge. Heart swelling as patrons lingered before pieces. 1. A portrait of two figures silhouetted against a river at dusk. Hands bridged, drawing gasps for its intimacy. "That's us," a friend whispered. And Riley's flush deepened. Her gaze seeking Harper's across the room. A smile that promised forever. Later, amid cleanup, as crates echoed hollow, Riley pulled Harper into the back alley. City hum distant. "This is rebirth," she said, backing her against brick warmed by day. From ashes to this, alive. Seen. Their kiss was summer incarnate, fierce. Sun ripen. Hands roaming with the freedom of healed wounds. They made love that night on a blanket by the riverbank. Stars wheeling overhead. Bodies a symphony of rediscovery. Riley arching under Harper's touch. Gasps mingling with cricket chorus. Harper tracing the map of her spine. Each vertebra a milestone overcome. "You're my renaissance," Riley breathed afterward. Fingers painting lazy hearts on sweat-slick skin. Harper chuckled, pulling her closer. The rivers lap a lullaby to their sated quiet. The season unfolded in adventures that stitched them tighter. A road trip to the Oregon coast. Highway 101 winding like a lover's arm. Stops at Cannon Beach where Haystack Rock loomed sentinel. Waves crashing foam lace on toes. Tide pools teeming with anemones pulsing like hidden hearts. They camped under redwoods in Oswald West. Fire crackling as they roasted marshmallows. Stories spilling like sparks. Riley's Montana girlhood chasing fireflies in hayfields. Harper's Midwest summers biking corn maze paths. Dreaming of cities that breathed art. One evening, as fog rolled in from the Pacific, they hiked to a secluded cove. Path slick with salt and pine. At the overlook, Riley paused, wind tugging her hair. I used to think rebirth meant starting over. Blank slate. But it's this, carrying the scars as stripes. Stronger for them. She turned. Eyes see deep. You gave me that vision. Harper drew her near. Salt on lips as they kissed. The ocean's roar of vows underscore. We gave it to each other. Layer by layer. Back in Portland, rebirth touched the mundane. Riley teaching a workshop at Reed, her alma mater. Voice steady as she guided students through digital layers. Harper commissioning a custom binding for a wolf omnibus. Leather embossed with intertwined vines. A gift for their first anniversary. Marked not by calendar but by the nights Riley first stayed. They celebrated with a feast on the roof. Charcuterie from local foragers. Wine from Willamette Valley vines. The city sprawl a glittering sea below. But growth invited reflection. Moments where old doubts surfaced like driftwood on shore. During a heat wave, sweat slick and restless, Riley confessed over iced tea on the porch. Sometimes I wake terrified you'll wake up and see the broken parts. Decide they're too much. Harper set her glass down. Condensation pooling like tears unshed. Those parts are what I love most, the resilience in your cracks. The way you bloom through. She took Riley's hand, pressing it to her chest. Feel that? It's steady because of you. To honor the rebirth. They volunteered at a shelter in Old Town. Painting murals with queer youth. Walls transforming from drab to dreams. Rainbows weaving through cityscapes. Figures hand in hand against sunsets. Riley led with infectious energy. Her own story shared in brushstrokes. Inspiring a shy teen to add her first bold line. Harper watched. Pride a warm current. Seeing Riley's healing ripple outward. Touching lives like sunlight on leaves. A weekend retreat to the Cascades sealed the season's arc. A cabin in the shadow of Mount Hood. Rented for solitude amid wildflowers and whispering pines. They hiked to Ramona Falls. Mist from the cascade veiling them like bridal gauze. Water's song of baptism. At the base, Riley stripped to essentials. Wading into the pool. Beckoning Harper with a grin. They swam. Cold shocking then invigorating. Bodies colliding in playful splashes that evolved to embraces. Water sluicing over skin like renewal's touch. Drying on rocks warmed by alpine sun. Riley leaned against Harper. Wildflowers tucked into her hair. This is it reborn. Not perfect, but whole. Harper nodded. Kissing the crown of damp curls. The mountain's majesty a witness to their quiet triumph. Fall hinted early. Leaves edging gold along the river trails. But summer's rebirth lingered in their every glance. Every touch. Riley's exhibit toured to Seattle. A homecoming laced with irony, Lena attending incognito. Leaving a note of quiet admiration that Riley read aloud to Harper. Then tucked away like autumn leaf. Noistin. Just a nod to paths diverged. Their love, once a seed in storm soil, now towered, branches interlaced. Fruits of trust and tenderness. In the bungalow's heart, as evenings cooled, they danced slow in the kitchen. Riley's head on Harper's shoulder. the world outside fading to irrelevance. Rebirth, they learned, was not an end but an eternal spring, love's patient alchemy turning leaden pasts to golden nows. Autumn draped Portland in a mantle of amber and rust, maple canopies along the boulevards aflame as if the city itself exhaled a final, fervent breath before winter's hush. The bungalow stood sentinel to the changing guard, its eaves strung with pumpkin lights that glowed like harvest moons, the air within redolent of apple cider simmering on the stove, cinnamon and clove weaving through rooms now fully theirs. Harper and Riley's life together had become a quiet legend among friends, the story of couch crash turned cornerstone, a testament to love's patient forge. Light emerged not in blaze, but in persistent glow, the kind that outlasts tempests, illuminating corners long dim. Mornings found them wrapped in each other on the porch, mugs steaming as fog lifted from the Willamette, revealing herons stalking shallows like ancient scribes. Riley's head rested on Harper's thigh, fingers absently sketching patterns on faded denim, while Harper read aloud from dog-eared Auden, lines of tilted worlds righted by faithful hands. "This," Riley would murmur, "is the light I didn't know I craved." Their days wove work with wonder. Harper's restorations at Powell's now included collaborative pieces with Riley. Books rebound with illustrated end papers, tales of women navigating tempests to tranquil shores. Commissions poured in, whispers of their synergy spreading through Portland's creative undercurrent. Evenings often led to the East Bank trails, where they walked as dusk bruised the sky violet, leaves crunching underfoot like whispered affirmations. Conversations meandered deep, dreams of a studio addition to the bungalow, perhaps a trip to the Smokies come spring, tracing southern roots in mist-shrouded hollows. One crisp October eve, they hosted a harvest supper, long table groaning under root vegetables roasted with rosemary, pies from heirloom recipes Riley unearthed from her Montana kin. Friends gathered, candles guttering in glass jars, stories circling like autumn leaves, toasts to Riley's resilience, nods to Harper's steadfast harbor. Plates cleared. Music swelled from a vintage turntable, Joni Mitchell's Blue, voice aching sweet, and Riley drew Harper to the living room's heart, bodies swaying in the throng. "You're my light," Riley confided mid-spin, breath warm against ear. Harper's arms tightened, a silent echo, "And you? Mine." The dance dissolved into laughter as others joined, but their orbit held, a gravitational pull born of shared dawn. Challenges arose, as light demands shadow to define it. A freelance drought hit Riley mid-month, rejection stacking like cordwood, drudging old insecurities. "What if the muse abandons me?" she fretted one rain-lashed afternoon. Sketchpad abandoned on the kitchen table, lines aborted in frustration. Harper knelt before her chair, hands on knees, eyes level. "Muses are fickle, love isn't. Remember the gorge water-carved canyons over eons. Your light persists, rain or shine." She fetched oils from the studio, setting up a canvas by the window where storm clouds brooded. Together they painted not perfection, but presence, abstract swirls of cerulean and ochre, storm yielding to saffron break. Riley's strokes gained fury then grace, the canvas a mirror to her spirit's rebound. By evening, as rain tapered to mist, the piece hung above the mantel, a testament to collaborative gleam. They made love before it, bodies illuminated by the fire's dance, touches reverent as prayer, Riley's lips charting Harper's collarbone, eliciting shivers like wind through aspens, Harper's hands cradling hips, grounding in the rhythm of breath and belonging. Afterward, tangled in quilts, Riley traced the painting's glow. This is us, enduring, beautiful in flux. Winter's approach brought introspection, days shortening to cradle candlelit reeds by the hearth. They volunteered again at the shelter, expanding to storytelling nights, Riley weaving tales of rebirth from folklore, Harper binding chapbooks of participants' words, small volumes of light pinned in shadowed hours. One evening, a young woman shared her fracture, a coming-out exile, and Riley's arm around Harper tightened, their story a beacon in the circle. Gratitude rituals anchored them, jars on the nightstand where notes slipped nightly, your laugh in the rain, the way you hum while folding laundry, read aloud on solstice eve over glue and gingerbread. Laughter mingled with tears, the jar brimming with proofs of their luminous weave. A trip to the San Juan Islands capped the year. Ferries slicing Puget Sound silk, orcas breaching distant like mythic guardians. They rented a float cabin, bobbing on gentling waves. Days of kayaking coves where seals eyed them curious. Evenings of stargazing from the deck, Milky Way a spilled river of diamonds. One night, aurora faint on northern fringe, Riley knelt with a ring, silver band twined with river pearl and quartz, simple as their vows unspoken. "Marry me," she said. Not question but quiet certainty. Eyes reflecting celestial fire. Harper's yes was a sob-laced kiss. Salt and starlight on tongues. The sound whispering assent. Back home, plans unfolded unhurried. A ceremony at the falls come summer. Friends as witnesses. The gorge their cathedral. Light, they affirmed, was communal, rippling from hearth to horizon. As November waned, snow dusting evergreens like powdered sugar, they stood on the porch, arms entwined, city aglow below. Riley's head on Harper's shoulder, breath sinking to the night's hush. From that couch to this, she mused. Who knew safe love could remake worlds? Harper kissed her temple, river lights winking like shared secrets. It always could. We just had to let it. The story didn't end. Love's light and endless dawn, casting long, warm shadows of hope. In their bungalow's embrace, wounds long mended bore faint silver lines, badges of the journey from dark to divine. And in each other's eyes, they saw eternity tender, tenacious, forever home.